I'm going to tell some stories of the children, and those stories are derived from research I conducted in the past 2 years, from 2010 to 2011. What I did, how I went about research is like this. I first interviewed some workers, and then I traced back to their places of origin and interviewed their children and their parents. So this is how I learned about the stories of the left behind children. So I will tell some stories of the children I met in the places of origin. And this is a place I went in Chongqing. It's Hongyang Village, Qinglong Township, Fengjie County in Chongqing. This is a small village in the mountain. In this photo, we see a classroom, many small kids sitting there, and one boy at very back. He's already 7 years old, but he couldn't talk yet. The reason is the parents have been working in the city in the past years, and they left him with the aunt, who is also busy with other things. So the aunt locked him up inside a room. He had no chance to talk with anybody, so he lost ability to talk. And the grandmother kind of had a lot of sympathy about the boy, so she decided to take care of him and put him in school, and now he started to learn how to communicate with people. Even though he still couldn't talk, he's starting to make sounds. This is a very sad story. In this photo, we see a teacher and 3 students. We see 2 boys, these 2 smaller boys, and they are just 5 years old, but they are already at the 2nd grade in the primary school. The reason is their parents are away, far, working in the south, and they left them with the teacher. So the teacher is teaching at school, taking them along, and looking after them in the evening. So she has no other place to put them, so she put them in her class. So they started the class with her, and at 1st grade and then 2nd grade, so now they are 5 years old and they are already at 2nd grade. Unfortunately, we see this school in the village is already closed, where this very kind teacher has been teaching for years and where those small children went to school. This school has closed. I was there in November 2010. I saw the children, I met the teacher, but now, in a few months, in the early 2011, when I called back asking how they are, and I was told the teacher left and the school is closed. So the small kids, if they want to go to school, they may have to go very, 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 very far away from their village. So these are some stories about the children, and we see the children are left behind, and they are suffering from many problems. I've also met workers who were left behind children before, and of course I've met many workers who have children who are left behind in the countryside while they are working in the city. And these children, as many people may imagine, face all kinds of problems. For instance, one worker told me how he dropped off from school when he was in high school. He was left behind to his aunt by his parents. And one day he went to internet bar and went home very, very late. And the aunt was very annoyed and criticized him and said, "Don't come back anymore." And if your parents criticize you and said, "Don't come back anymore," you would come back anyway, in most cases. But in this case, the boy decided not to come back anymore, so he dropped off from school. So we just listened to all kinds of stories. And also I heard a story from a young teacher teaching in a school, in a secondary school in a township town. And she's a teacher who teaches so-called social class. And one day she prepared a theme, I love my family. So when she proposed this theme to discuss with the children, because more than half of them, even 2/3 of them, are left behind children, and several children replied to her immediately, I don't love my family, they're never around. So this young teacher, who was not experienced, didn't know what to reply. And I guess people may have heard those stories and may have heard other stories. Anyway, they are very sad stories. So what these stories tell us? To me, these are the problems, but these are the consequences of the structure problems society has. So what kind of structure problems we are facing in our society? We have gone through 30 years of economic development. We have generated economic miracle. So should we reflect and think that this economic development is at the very cost of these workers and their family and those children, both left behind and migrant children? So should we rethink the development approach we have embraced in the past 30 years? This is an approach that is economic development centered rather than people centered or children centered. And this development approach, we have to also think what lead to such belief in such economic development model or development approach. And I would say it's the value we have towards life and towards the world value we have. That is why we believe in such model, such approach. So that's why I say the children's problem is the consequences, it's not the root causes. So if we want to help the children, if we want to solve the problem, we have to think how we tackle those root causes. The children and the parents should stay together. When the parents work in the city, the children should be able to stay with them in the city. If somebody has to make their life at the cost of separating from their family, from their children, something is wrong there. The society, the business is developed at the cost of human being, at the cost of the workers, at the cost of the family, at the cost of children. Something is wrong there. The basic value of the society is not right. So how do we start to tackle this problem? Well, I've also come across many kind of advocacy. How do we tackle the problems? How do we solve the problems? And I think first of all, the children, the migrant children, should have equal access to the education in the city. But this is not enough. Why? I've also interviewed workers and their children who are with them in the city. And very often it's difficult for the parents to look after their children, even though they are around, because the working hours are not friendly enough for them to take time to look after their children. For instance, if they have to work for 12 hours and they are not able to pick up the children from kindergarten or from school, and if they have to do night shift, nobody is able to look after the children during the night. So equal access to the education in the city, it's important, it's one thing, but a human working hour or child care, a friendly working hour is also important. We need both to ensure the possibility of enable this family unity and solving the problem of left behind children. You need to consider both. Also, the workers should be given perspectives and to settle down in the city. Everybody knows the housing price is rising in the big cities, even in the smaller cities. And many people, or even sometimes I would consider most people couldn't afford buying an apartment in the cities, and the workers, the migrant workers, face the same problems. And so they cannot settle down because it's very expensive. But they cannot go back to the countryside because they don't find jobs, and agriculture production is not sufficient enough to make a living. So they have to stay in the city, but they don't have enough perspective that they can live in the city permanently. So they temporarily live in the city permanently. It's really a very non-promising situation. And this is not just a problem of the migrant workers and their family. It's the problem of the whole society. If we have 300 million migrant workers who are living in this condition, no long-term future perspectives, make a living at the cost of themselves, of their family. I mean, this is a problem of the whole country because there are 300 million. If we plus their children, it's the population and their family is even larger. I mean, this whole population. I would say this is not just at the cost of the migrant workers, it's at the cost of the whole society. So a starting point to tackle this problem is we have to, the society, the state, the government have to think how to provide with workers, also other citizens, access to cheaper housing facilities, equal access to education, the child care friendly working hour, and cheaper housing facilities. We need multi approaches to tackle this problem.